Hello, I'm Ann Beheler. I'm the principal investigator for the National Convergent Technology Center that is based at Collin College, and also for the IT Skills Standards Grant 2020 and beyond, also based at Collin College. And I'm going to be co-presenting today with Mark Dempsey, the Assistant Director for the National CTC. We're going to talk about high employer engagement, how we go about defining the skills and determining what they want for the future so that we can prepare our students for some really great jobs. Here's some facts. The educators believe that the graduates are very well prepared for work. Businesses do not agree. Different studies, they vary in terms of the disparity in terms of the agreement, but they're not the same. But I will say that most businesses and educators want the graduates to be workforce ready. The more workforce ready our graduates are, the less time that the businesses have to spend in getting them up to speed as employees. Why are skill standards important? First of all, they're a blueprint for what we need to teach and also for how the IT workplaces are organized and how the roles of workers are going to contribute to the success of the businesses. Our project embraces a future focus for sure, so that educators have the time to address the needs for the future. We're not really fast at making curricular changes, but when we ask for the employers to focus on the future, we have a little bit more of an on-ramp so that we can address their needs by the time they need them. And it is true that the business and industry representatives do want to hire our students who can integrate products, not just from one vendor, and when they are involved in the process of letting us know what the knowledge, skills, and abilities are that they want for the future, that is very important, and they are more likely to hire our graduates. So educators are going to use the skill standards to create curriculum that is aligned with worker needs, or actually the employer needs for those workers. And the project is also creating some student learning outcomes for model curriculum so that educators can use those SLOs to align their curriculum. Employers use the skill standards to improve communications about job openings. It turns out that employers, especially the small and medium-sized employers, are kind of on their own figuring out how to come up with a future-focused job description. I remember doing that when I was running a consulting firm along the way in my career, and it was actually quite difficult to come up with a job description that was future-focused. So these skill standards will be important for at least the small and medium-sized employers. The job descriptions also better explain what the jobs are for communication so that the students know what they're getting into and know what kind of performance they need to have to be successful. We ultimately want to widen the pipeline of qualified IT workers. We know there are many jobs that are remaining unfilled, and that it's very important that we produce more American workers for the American jobs. Our purpose, again, is to create a future-facing set of skill standards of the most critical IT job clusters. And we are totally 100% led by subject matter experts. And for each of the job clusters we're focusing upon, we're enlisting 40+ subject matter experts, in other words, really experts in the particular field, to use what we call as a modified DACM, and then with follow-up web conferences and surveys to hone in on the specific KSAs. We are actually using the same process that we use for our business and industry leadership team on an annual basis. We use it for each one of these job clusters so that we can decide with their help what sorts of knowledge, skills, abilities will be needed for the future. The purpose is to determine portions of the standards that apply to 2-year and 4-year programs to ease our development process and to help both employers and educators. We are, by the way, incorporating other skill standards that exist, like the NICE and NIST standards, ACM, various standards that are created within states. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. However, the last time the skill standards were created in a comprehensive manner was 2003. And that's obviously in the rearview mirror and not particularly relevant for today. This is our process in a single slide, and I know this is quite small. It's going to be difficult to read it in this particular format, so we're going to break it apart a piece at a time. The part at the top that is in the golden color, that one is referring to our work with thought leaders across the United States, and we'll talk about that as we go along. Then we're also going to talk about how the subject matter expert meetings are held, how we process the data, how we work with the employers to determine that we've gotten what they really want. And then at the end, we're going to talk about how we are, in fact, training people, and we're developing pilot policies and plans to keep the skill standards updated. So for the first part, the thought leader meeting, we believe that all of work of this sort needs to be led by the employers, not us. And what we did was we worked in 2019 with 98 thought leaders, and we fed them information on the various job descriptions and how many postings there were in the previous 6 months, how many unfilled jobs there were at the end of the period, and then also what the growth rate was for each of the job cluster areas for the future. We used that and discussed this with them in extensively 4 two-hour meetings, and then we actually took the information, synthesized it together, sent it out in terms of surveys to all of the people that attended so that we could get consensus across the meetings. In these 4 meetings, again, we had 98 employers and we did synthesize the data. We sent it out then at the end to 147 employers so that we could get a broader consensus across the nation. 7 of the 10 job clusters were identified at that point, and frankly, they did not come to conclusion about anything beyond that. And so we decided we needed to address the 7 anyway, so we would go ahead and work on those. Those are infrastructure, connectivity, management, and engineering. Think networking plus cloud plus some security. Technical support, which I was actually kind of surprised about since we have so many knowledge bases. But to quote one of the CTOs, as long as we have users, we'll have technical support positions, which is good for us because that is one of the on-ramps that some of our new graduates typically take for their careers. Technical project and program management, data management and engineering, and think in that case about DBA, the IT side of data. However, understand that data does not all exist in databases anymore. Data analytics and predictive modeling. Of course, we know data is the king these days. Software development, trusty software development is still in there and in high demand. And then cybersecurity. We have had now 3 two-hour virtual thought leader follow-up meetings to identify the other clusters. They occurred in November and just recently in December. Total of 50 employers have participated. We are sending out synthesized data for verification, and hopefully we'll identify the remaining 3 cluster areas. Okay, for each one of the clusters, we do gather people together with a list of pro forma knowledge, skills, and abilities and tasks that we think apply to that particular job cluster area. And then we recruit 30 or 40 subject matter experts per cluster. We hold the meeting, and actually the process we're using is called PCAL 7. It is a job skills analysis process that originated in the US Air Force. And we use the voting process, including an electronic voting process, to identify the various tasks, knowledge, skills, and abilities and give them a priority, an average priority based on the subject matter experts. We then synthesize the multiple meetings, and originally we were holding these meetings face-to-face on the East Coast, in the central part of the US, and on the West Coast. Now we're still holding that many meetings, but we're holding them virtually using web meeting software. And then we send the synthesized data out to the employers to view what they've come up with and to get their comments. Our progress to date, we have held all of the meetings for infrastructure and have completed the analysis with the employers. Same thing for technical support. Technical project management, same thing. Data analytics and predictive modeling, same thing. Data management engineering is the 5th cluster we're addressing. And we've gotten the data from the subject matter experts and the key performance indicator meeting. In other words, the meeting that determines how good is good enough. That will occur in January of 2021. And also scheduled for 2021, we will be working on the SME meetings for the software development cluster and the cybersecurity job cluster. We do plan to host those next meetings for the final 3 clusters pending the thought leader recommendations. And then once we have a cluster finished, we post it on the website and request comment. We notify everybody that it's there. We request their comments. And we are in the process of incorporating feedback as we receive it. And then if there's anything that's particularly complex that comes in, we'll pull back the original subject matter experts. And then it'll be a living document for each one of the clusters so that we modify it based on feedback and we keep it updated. So draft skill standards are posted already for infrastructure, data analytics, technical project management, and also for technical support. Data management in engineering is pending only the key performance indicator meeting. And here's the link to connectedtech.org, ITSS-2020, and you'll be able to see the KSAs at that point. You'll also be able to see the key performance indicators as well. Then in terms of keeping this relevant, the employers and SMEs for each cluster get the opportunity to develop the performance indicators, as I discussed, and we put that actually on the website too. Schedule for 2021, student learning outcomes will be created for the first 5 job clusters at least, if not more than that. And actually many of these are in process now. Data analytics is just about ready to be posted. And then we get down to dissemination, and that's training other people how to use what we have created, both employers and educators, and also developing some pilot policies for sustainability. Schedule for 2021, the KPIs will be published. Thought leaders and SMEs invited to comment about that. We'll begin creation on the how-to documents for dissemination, and we'll begin pushing dissemination through conference presentations and also direct mail. I'd like to turn it over to Mark Dempsey, our Assistant Director, to talk about the BILT model, because the BILT model is something that undergirds both the National CTC and also the ITSS project. Mark, take it away.
All right, thanks, Ann. So the BILT, Ann has called it many times, is the traditional business advisory council on steroids. Rather than sort of passively listening to what the faculty wants to do, you're really having the employers co-lead your program. And that creates a greater sense of ownership in the program. It's a stronger relationship that you're forming and building. You're identifying those KSAs once a year, the job skills via vote and a discussion. It's a very structured process, which we'll discuss in a moment. That BILT is also sharing the trends in the workplace, the forecasting labor demand, and all this together, as I mentioned, it's developing that really deep relationship, connecting the college with the employers. They're going to want to hire those graduates out of that program because they feel like part of it. They're part of the process and helping determine the curriculum. And of course, all that together, you're aligning the curriculum with the workforce needs, so you're getting those workforce-ready graduates. And although we're IT focused, really this works for any kind of technical program. This BILT model, this process will work for any program with a technical education. So we've identified 7 essential elements for the BILT model. Here's the first one. So to do a BILT, you really want to follow these 7 steps. That's the key here. So your BILT needs to be divided by subdiscipline with specific focuses. There's some schools have like everybody together in one big room once a year. That's not effective. You got your programming people, your cloud people, your infrastructure people, security people all in one room. That's not as effective. You really want to divide that BILT by discipline so that when they're voting on and giving recommendations on job skills, it's really the people with that expertise for that discipline. So you want to have your programming BILT, you want to have a cloud BILT, you have security BILT. So really, they're divided up by topic and discipline to really give you focused expertise on those job skills and what they're looking for. You really got to meet with them once a year. There's many programs. You do the rubber chicken dinner once a year, and that's kind of it. You've checked the box. You're done. But really, we want more engagement. We recommend regular meetings. We do it 4 times a year. We do one in person in the summer to do the KSA vote and discussion. Other 3 meetings are all online via conference phone, web conference. Remember that the saying, out of sight, out of mind. So how can you really build a relationship if you're seeing someone, once or twice a year? So really regular engagement, more frequent meetings is essential to have a BILT. This is important also, you want to give the BILT members, the employers, a chance to talk, not just have the faculty report into them what they're doing. So we always allow the first half hour or so at least of those online web conference meetings to talk about trends. We let the employers, the BILT members, talk about what they see on the horizon with the IT landscape and in the workplace. That gives educators who are on the call as well, listening, a pretty good head start on what's coming down the pike. A lot of things that are discussed are still pretty nascent. They're not really ready to be put in the classroom yet, but it's definitely giving the educators a first look at what's happening with the IT workforce, so they can be better prepared for what's coming ahead. This is important also. You got to make sure you invite your faculty to attend. There are some schools I've heard that the faculty aren't allowed to attend the employer advisory councils, the BILTs. So that's important. You want to really remove that filter, that intermediary, so the faculty is in the room listening directly from the employers what they're looking for, and that helps also. There's questions being asked by the BILT about what's happening with the program. The faculty is there to help. We do recommend the faculty as passive listeners for the most part. You're there to listen. We don't want the faculty to hijack the conversation and sort of get sidetracked with those discussions of curriculum and courses and all that kind of things. But it's important the faculty is in the room with the BILT members, the employers, to hear what they're looking for. So this is the big one that Anne's mentioned as well. This is sort of the crux of the ITSS process is this KSA vote. We are asking your BILT members to recommend a detailed list that's ranked of knowledge, skills, and abilities, and tasks as well, that the BILT would like to see entry-level workers have 12 to 36 months in the future. And because the wheels of academia turn slowly, you would really ask the BILT to look far down the road, because if you're looking for something like right now, by the time you put it in place, it'll be too late. So really ask the BILT to look ahead. And this process is very structured. There's a vote. They rank every job. You go through this list one by one, and the BILT members vote on a scale of 1 to 4, 1 being you don't need it, 4 being it's essential. So the average of those votes is really helpful to determining sort of what's important, what's not important. In the picture there, you see that's the way we used to do it. That's Anne counting raised hands, very manual, very slow. We have a new way now. We use sort of virtual online free tools to do that vote with smartphones and laptops. It's much, much faster. It makes that vote go quicker. But this is important. The CTC does this once a year, and it always changes. A lot changes in that year. And of course, the ITSS, as you're seeing, they're doing that for all those clusters. It's doing the same process happening there as well. So when the BILT has convened and given their votes and the recommendations, the job is not done. The next step is to take that list. The great part about this is you have this very detailed metric, this spreadsheet, this hard data. The faculty can then take at a later meeting and map to the classes, to the curriculum. So you want to see if what the BILT wants students to know is being taught in the classroom. And if there are gaps, and sometimes there are gaps, it gives the faculty a chance to make adjustments. If there's holes, you need to fill those holes and make sure that you're teaching what the BILT members are recommending the students learn. And the last step here, the last of the essential elements, is to close the loop. The BILT has given the recommendations, they've done their voting, the faculty has gone off to their separate meeting and mapped it and figured out what the problems are. And now you need to go back to the BILT and tell them what you did. And make sure they feel valued, make sure they feel heard, and that you're implementing the recommendations that they gave to you. Now, sometimes, they ask for a lot, and you have to educate them on the realities of education. And sometimes also there are problems. You can't do what they want you to do. They can help you, though, because as long as you have that line of communication open, they're engaged, they feel like ownership of the program, they can help you sometimes with equipment. Maybe you need a teacher that can help you find an adjunct instructor. So there's important reasons to keep that line of communication open. Don't just have it in a vacuum where they tell you what to do and you sort of ignore them. That will erode their commitment. So make sure you go back, close the loop, and give them feedback. So the best employer for all of this, Anne said this many times, you want people who know what's going on in the trenches, like what do the workers need to know. You want the high-level technical executives for the big picture, but also you want those first-line hiring managers who really know the job. HR representatives aren't as good because HR is sort of getting all the information secondhand. So there's that filter that they're intermediary. So you want to remove that. So you want people who know the job, the first-line hiring managers, maybe some technicians, for the details, and also for looking ahead for the future-facing elements. You want those high-level technical executives as well. So you want a good mix, also of large, medium, and small companies. So Anne, you want to talk about sustainability now for the ITSS project?
Sustainability is an ongoing process in terms of the skill standards. As soon as you get skill standards created, if you actually print a booklet like was done in 2003, it's almost out of date the minute the printing is done. So what we're doing is keeping everything online, and we're piloting a crowdsourcing approach to keep the job skills updated. And we, in fact, are allowing subject matter experts to comment. They actually have to apply so that we know that we're not being bombed by bots. Then the comments are made and hopefully evaluated every semester or every quarter. And then we decide what needs to be included in the update. This is a new process. It's a closed crowdsourcing approach, but we're hopeful that we can use this to keep the skill standards updated. We've also begun seeking some industry financial support and leadership to sustain the work as well. It's obvious that the National Science Foundation cannot fund this on a basis of perhaps every 3 to 5 years. That's not likely. So it's something that we need to figure out how to sustain if we possibly can. What can you do? You can sign up to get on our distribution list for the skill standards, and also to get on our distribution list for the National CTC. That way you can receive the skill standards as they're finalized, or at least receive word about them. And you can find out what's going on with the CTC. You can apply to be one of our educator subject matter experts for a cluster of interest to you. You can also recommend appropriate employer SMEs as we go along. We're always seeking subject matter experts in the area. And those who might be interested, if you're listening to this presentation, you might be able to participate in our meetings as well. Here is our summary slide with the contact information for all of the people at ITSS. And it's very important for you to contact us. Notice that we have a team in the central part of the U.S., a team on the East Coast and the West Coast. Christina Titus is the program director for this, and we look forward to working with you. So check out our website, and once you go to connectedtech.org, you'll probably find more information about CTC that you will find interesting as well. And hopefully you are putting your questions in the chat box if we are listening to this during the WASTC conference, and hopefully we've been able to answer your questions. Thank you, Mark, for presenting with me today, and we look forward to working with people across the country.
Thank you very much.